where do I begin? Tony came to my wedding. Tony came to, at the Hacienda, I used to resign quite often, which I think you should do.
In a strop?
I'm not that kind of a person, Chris.
Dirty strop?
No. Yeah, so I left the Hacienda, basically in 1990, the Thursday night that I've been doing for 4.5 years. It was going really well, but the club actually was obviously under a lot of pressure from gangsters, and there was violence, and there was a lot of trouble. And the club began to instigate door policies, like no baseball hats, no trainers. And I, in my kind of idealism, I thought that was all wrong. So I resigned for that reason. But Tony came to the last night. So I got on very well with him. He was actually very hands-off at the Hacienda. People talked to him as the promoter of the Hacienda. Well, he promoted the club in the sense that he bigged it up, but he didn't get involved with the day-to-day running. I DJ'd there from 86 to 90, then I went back 91 to 93, then went back 96 to 97. 500 times, and I had one conversation with Tony about music policy. That's just one. Which is one night I was DJing, and he knocked on the DJ box door, and he said to me, "Dave, do we play reggae?" And I'm like, "No, Tony." And he said, "Thought not." That was a conversation with Tony Wilson. But I fell out with him a lot. I think he fell out with a lot of people. I mean, Tony was a very charismatic, visionary person, and like anyone with a vision, he didn't want anyone to get in the way of that vision. You know, the vision was something that he really believed in. For example, in 1982, when Factory decided to open the Hacienda, Martin Hannett, who was a producer of Joy Division and New Order and a director of Factory Records alongside Tony, wanted to spend the money on studio equipment because he knew that it would be cheaper in the long run to have a really good studio, and there were synthesizers and all sorts around. But Tony wanted to open the club. So actually he ended up falling out with Martin Hannett, who was a fellow director. Martin Hannett took him to court. Martin Hannett pulled a gun on him. Martin Hannett didn't speak to Tony for years. Martin Hannett died after, a lot of problems with drugs, and was never a part of the Factory thing again, even though he'd produced Unknown Pleasures. So Tony was prepared to fall out with him. So falling out with a disc jockey was kind of pretty easy for her. And I think the other thing was that I think he just found me quite annoying. Like he'd be at some conference, and he'd arrive in his coat and his trainers and his, suit and whatever, and his theory, the theory of that moment. And he'd come out with this theory. And I don't know. I would like be sat at the back, and I'd be like, "What the fuck are you on about?" And he'd like, "Was that Haslam? For fuck's sake." And then, then we had a massive falling out over the filming of 24-Hour Party People, which I got asked by the filmmakers to basically organise the Hacienda scenes in the film. I've got the whole world in my hands, so I did that, and Tony said that in order to make the night more authentic, the Salford gangsters who had wrecked the club should be on the door, and we should have a totally free attitude to the sale and purchase of illegal drugs, And I could kind of understand him wanting it to be an authentic reproduction of the Hacienda, but I just thought that my job was to help the filmmakers make a film rather than to kind of create some artistic happening. So I just kept telling the filmmakers, ignore Tony, and then Tony, I think Tony phoned me up about 9 o'clock one morning. He just had a massive rant at me. Massive rant. Quite kind of violent and hurtful. And Rob Gretton, who was his closest partner on Factory Records and the New Order manager, had died 2 years before. I actually remember Tony saying to me, Dave, your mate Gretton's dead, you've got to deal with me now. And I just said, Tony, this film, 24 Hour Party People, is about you. You should just sit back and enjoy this. How many people have got a filmmaker like Michael Winterbottom and an actor like Steve Coogan intent on making a film of their life? Relax, enjoy it, this is amazing. Anyway, he then threatened to have me shot. No, he seriously did. I went on, somebody played me a recording of Tony saying, I want to have Dave Haslam shot. So, yeah, I've got a few Tony Wilson stories. No, it's mental. I mean, but that's those stories are, not everyone would have those stories, and, and he probably had, lots of good reasons for all that stuff, but that's like the true life thing. I think I then left a message on his answer phone saying, you want to have me shot? You know where I live, Tony? I said, if you don't, I live at 7 Walsingham Avenue, just off Burton Road. And that was the last thing I said to him. I left that message on his answer phone. And he died about a year later. There we go.
Dave, did you ever go to Hacienda as a punter? Do you have a favourite night? Floyd or Timber or Hop or...
As a punter, I remember lots of great... one of the things about the Hacienda was that period before Ecstasy, between 82 and 88, was a great period. There were lots of great bands on. Say again?
Dead or Alive, Pete Burns now,
Violent Femmes, Birthday Party, The Associates, Orange Juice and the Go-Betweens, Mantronics, they were fantastic. Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5, New Order. The Smiths, November 1983. That was brilliant. So I kind of remember the gigs, really.
That's what it was. There were a lot of gigs going on. You could have about 100 people on a dance night.
Sorry, say again.
That's what it was. A lot of bands going on in sort of 85, 86, early periods. As opposed to dancing and all that.
So I can't hear you. I've got DJ ears on fucking deaf.
A lot of bands, weren't there? A lot of bands.
Yeah.
All the ecstasy house music.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a whole change in the culture. It happened everywhere, didn't it? It happened all over the country. You had a whole load of people had made that move themselves. Which I think is good. The kind of people that were Smiths fans, say in 1987, 6, 7, were Acid House fans in 1989, and I think that's great. I think people should change, and it was fantastic that the culture did change. But I've always been bad at being a punter at dance nights, basically, because it's busman's holiday. You just go along, you just listen to the DJ. In fact, I normally gravitate towards the DJ, and I wouldn't play that. Oh, this is good. I'm just like that. I'm not in the moment. You got gigs? Much. How much is much? I go to a fair few, yeah. I mean, I saw Franz Ferdinand and Sparks, FFS, which was fantastic. Sparks were much better than them. I know it wasn't a sound clash, but it was a bit like that. I mean, I am very... I still dream of and occasionally manage to experience that sensation of going to a venue that holds 250, 300 people and walking in, and either there's a band playing who you can just tell are destined for greatness, or there's a DJ there playing music that you've not really heard before that you just want to know all about, or even just 350 people who are wearing weird clothes or their haircut is a bit oblique, and you kind of think, wow, this is a scene. And I still dream of that, and occasionally it happens when I walk in somewhere. And I don't go to big gigs, you know, I kind of go to those sort of gigs. And you know, because scenes is kind of, I think scenes is kind of what interests me, really.
It's a wonderful thing to hold on to, that pursuit of the viscerality of seeing something that mind-blowing.
But it is, when you're 53 and you're in those situations, you are normally old enough to have fathered, probably not enough stamina, but you'd have been old enough to have fathered all the people in that room. It is a bit weird being 53, going to see young bands. And there are times, Everything are mates of mine, and I started going to see their gigs a lot when they first started. And I'd go down to little gigs that they were doing in Birmingham and Cardiff. I went, you know, to a number of the gigs just because I enjoyed them, and I loved that feeling. And I was intrigued by, you know, how many people would turn up to watch everything at that point in their career, early in their career, in some little club in wherever. And there were a couple of times when I'd been mistaken for like the band's manager, or you know, their dad. So you know, but so I don't. That isn't why I wouldn't go to gigs, but you know, you'd become a bit self-conscious, really.